Joining us live right now is Sunny Gavaskar. Sunny, before I get into the nitty-gritties, overall, the 15-member squad, how does it look like to you? Any big surprises for you?
This looks like a very, very good team to me. It's a very well-balanced team. The selection committee has done an excellent job in looking at the possibility of where India is going to be playing. They're going to be playing in Dubai, so they've included all-rounders, spinning all-rounders, fast bowling all-rounders in the form of Hardik Pandya. So it is a really well-balanced team. But batting depth there is, bowling there's plenty of variety, and they've taken 2 wicket keepers as well. So I think it's a very well selected team.
Okay, now I'm going to talk to you about specific players. Sahibai, the first name that comes to your mind is that of Mohammad Siraj. He was a regular part of the Indian setup, but he doesn't get picked. What did you make of that?
It really wasn't a surprise because he just looked to be maybe feeling a little bit tired, worn out after the load that he bore during the tour of Australia. Arshdeep Singh with his left-handed variety, and I've said this before, and I'll repeat myself here again. Here is a bowler that you should even consider for the red ball format, because this boy has got the pace. He's got a very good way of moving the ball both ways. He's got a top-class surprise bouncer. He can bowl the Yorker. He's got everything, and he brings that left-handed variety. So I do believe that he should be looked at for the red ball format. He's played in England before, so he's got the experience. But let me not go into that at this stage. But it just, to me, this looks like a very, very good, well-balanced team.
Okay, Saiva, the good news, and I'm sure a lot of people would be breathing a sigh of relief because, we were on tenterhooks as far as Jasprit Bumrah's fitness is concerned. He did not come out to bowl in the Sydney game. We did not know exactly what is going to be the nature of the injury, whether it's going to be a long-time issue. Just the fact that the selectors have selected him and they expect him at least to play one of the ODIs, versus England ahead of the Champions Trophy, that is an indicator that it may not be as serious an injury as a lot of us were thinking it might have been?
Definitely, the selection committee will have more information about the extent of the injury and the nature of the injury. And taking that into account, they've selected him for the matches that will start on the 6th of February, which is about 20 days from now. He might not play the games on the 6th and the 9th. He might play the game only on the 12th, and then come in for the Champions Trophy. That could well happen. Or maybe he might just come in for the Champions Trophy. But that is such a huge boost to have Jasprit Bumrah be available for selection for the Champions Trophy. Maybe that is what they'll do. They might not play him in the three games against England. They might just keep him fresh and raring to go for the Champions Trophy. And that's huge, really huge news for India. I think the world acknowledges that he's the best bowler in all 3 formats.
Okay.
We've seen him do what he did in Australia. And also, we've seen him, bowl so well in white ball.
Two omissions I'm going to talk about, Sunny Bhai. The first one of Karun Nair. He scored about 700 odd runs in the Vijay Hazare tournament. There were talks that you need to include him. How would you look at that? Unfortunate to miss out, or if you take a look at the 15, how would you bring him in, and in place of whom? Was that the bigger question?
Yes, I think that would have been the bigger question, because when you look at what KL Rahul did in the last World Cup, 2023, he was very consistent. Shreyas Iyer was also very consistent. So therefore, both these players could not be left out. Once they were available and fit, they could be left out. So sometimes this happens, that a player is in great form, scoring hundreds of runs or picking bags of wickets, but he can't break through. We've seen that happen when the 4 great spinners were playing for India. There were so many other spinners who were, not so many, but there were at least a couple other spinners who could have played for India, who would have been a certainty in any other country's team, but they couldn't get a look in India. When Tendulkar, Lakshman, Dravid, Ganguly and Sehwag were playing, there was no place in the batting lineup for so many players, including maybe Karun Nair, who were just starting at that stage. So that's what happens sometimes. That is something that sadly cannot be changed. But if his form continues in the Ranji Trophy, then surely I think he'll be in contention for a place in the team that goes to England.
That's really interesting, Sai Bhai. The other one, Sanju Samson, there was, reportedly a toss-up between Pant and Samson. Samson actually scored 100 in the last ODI that he played versus South Africa. He's also part of the T20 setup. Tough call it was between Pant and Samson, and has the right call been taken?
Very tough, because look, the man has been scoring hundreds and hundreds of runs, and there is really no excuse to leave him out. But he was pitted against Rishabh Pant, who we all know can be a game changer, and I think plus he's a left-hander. Plus he's when you look at wicket keeping, he's probably the better wicket keeper. He might not be the better batter than Sanju Samson, but he can change the game perhaps a little bit more than Sanju Samson does, and that is the reason why Samson missed out. But look, I think Samson must not feel dejected, because look, pretty much all Indian cricket lovers will have sympathy for him of what he's achieved. But again, like I said with Karun Nair, sometimes somebody has to miss out, and sadly, it is Sanju Samson.
Saiba, a little birdie tells me that the fact that Sanju Samson did not play the Vijay Hazare, the Karnataka State Cricket Association had said that, listen, you have to attend the camp, only then we'll select you. Sanju did not attend the camp, and so he was not selected for the team. The fact that he did not play domestic cricket is a factor that went against him. This is something that I've picked up. If that is indeed the case, would you say selectors are walking the talk about the seriousness of domestic cricket?
Yes, absolutely. And they should walk the talk even as far as the red ball is concerned. So, I think whatever happens in the Champions Trophy, the red ball is going to be an important part. The Ranji Trophy quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals coming up in the next few weeks. And I think that also has to be taken into account, because, yes, the selection committee itself had decided to leave out Shreyas Iyer and Ishan Kishan because they did not play the Ranji Trophy last year, despite the fact that Shreyas Iyer was injured, and he did not play because he was injured. But they left them out of the contract, the contract, and now if that's the case with Samson, the reason why Samson's been left out, then they're walking the talk, all right, but the same standard has to apply to everybody, and no exception should be made. Then and only then we will know that Indian cricket means that Indian cricket is above everybody else. Nobody is bigger than Indian cricket.
So, are you getting a feeling that has begun to happen? Because apart from just selecting the team, Rohit Sharma was asked various other questions, and he did confirm that he'll be playing the next Ranji Trophy for Mumbai, the game that starts on 23rd. So Rohit is going to be playing that. Do you think the signs are there that slowly and steadily that importance is being given even in the red ball as far as domestic cricket is concerned?
Yes, it's a good thing, because look, he didn't get runs in Australia, so he knows that he needs to spend time out in the middle. However much net practice you have, however much you can take against a throwdown specialist, batting in a game, feeling the ball in the middle of the bat, knowing that you make a mistake, you're going to be back in the pavilion, and then still scoring runs is a big, big difference. In a net, you could get out caught 20 times, you can bat 20 minutes, 40 minutes, but if in that you keep on getting dismissed, that practice is no good, because there's no pressure on you to bat really well and not give your wicket away. In a match, that is there. So what can happen and what should happen is if you don't get runs, then get into the net next door, because every ground now does not have nets necessarily on the ground, but next to the ground there are nets. So you fail with the bat in a match, go into the nets and have that practice, get that rhythm going. But nothing like playing in a match. So I'm very happy to see that Rohit Sharma has said that he's going to play the Ranji Trophy.
Saibai, what did you make of the new diktat that has really come out? And we were in possession of that a BCCI document a couple of days ago, where now, they've set certain SOPs. Ajit Agarkar also spoke about it. He said that, listen, every team across the world has that, and so certain SOPs needed to be there. One about, not having families. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions from those SOP. One of them was not having families for more than 14 days on tour, especially on a big tour like a 45-day tour. So this is one of the guidelines that has been given by the BCCI to the players. What did you make of this particular guideline?
Look, when we played, we had a situation where the wives came only towards the latter part of the tour. So after the first maybe couple of test matches were done, the wives came in. So we also played 5 test matches in the old days. So they were there for the second half of the tour. And so what that did was, most of the time all the major sort of functions, receptions, functions, official functions for the team used to be in the first fortnight or so. So those were done. Your practice routine was set. When you would go for practice, when you would go for training, everything was set. You had a very, very good time to bond together as a team for that first maybe 3 weeks or so. And then if the wives came 3, 4 weeks later, the wives came in, it did not really upset anything because the bonding was still there. So I think uh, something like that, if the BCCI is planning to do, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't. Having said that, I don't blame families for any loss of form or any poor performance, because that is simply due to cricket, being the opposition being better than you, whether with the bat or the ball. But I think you need this is a team. Teams, when they bond together, then they can lift themselves up. There is a feeling of playing for each other that gets strengthened, and that can happen in that first 3 weeks, 4 weeks when they are on their own. And so there are no distractions. Like nobody wanting to rush back to the family or anything of the sort.
And sorry, by the other bit, it's been made pretty clear, no personal staff. I mean, this was, very well known that certain players were traveling with, let's say, a social media teams, some with their own private chefs, some with their own private security. Now, in the guidelines, it's clearly written no personal staff is going to be allowed on tour. Do you think that's also a step in the right direction?
Uh, how are you going to stop the personal staff if they're flying on a different aircraft, or even if they're flying in another section of the same aircraft? How are you going to stop them from being around? So if the player is feeling a little bit more secure with that, then how are you going to stop that? Uh, I don't know. We never faced any such problems. We were just ordinary people. We didn't have any threats coming our way. Though having said that, when we went to Australia in 77, 78, there was a threat of a sect, and so we were accompanied by Australian policemen, Australian security people, right throughout the tour. And so, if there is a perceived threat, then that has to be explained to the BCCI, and maybe then the BCCI will look at it differently. As far as chefs are concerned, we ate everything that was put in front of us. We didn't really bother about what was. It was either a question of you're a vegetarian or you were a non-vegetarian, and you ate what you saw. You ate in the evening what you could afford, because our allowances were not that great. So you ate in the evening what you could afford. So, but all this thing didn't make it any different. By the way, also during the time that we toured, we just had a manager and an assistant manager. We didn't have any other staff coming with us, and I guess we didn't do badly all that time because we thought for ourselves about either the manager or the assistant manager used to be a former player, so used to be invariably a former great player, and so obviously a lot of us would uh, pick their brains about how the mistakes that we made, how we got better. But at the end of the day, we still had to think ourselves on what we didn't have as many people trying to tell us do this, do that. So maybe trying to learn from one's mistakes would be the way to go. But again, like I said, how is the BCCI going to implement this, the staff and chefs policy? That certainly will be interesting to see over the next few months.
Different times, Sahibai, completely different times. Those days, players did not even have fancy cars or could travel in chartered jets. That was completely different times. But an interesting point that Mr. Gavaskar makes, that, we'll have to see how much it is going to be implemented, because was it a reaction to India's performance, or is it going to be a permanent feature in Indian cricket, these SOPs or these guidelines? We'll have to wait and watch. I'm afraid that's all the time that we have on this broadcast. Sahibai, I was here in your city, but unfortunately Mr. Gavaskar is not here. He'll be here tomorrow. I'll miss him by a day, because there is a big function organized for him right behind me, which is the Wankhede Stadium. We'll of course bring that report to you, but for the moment, from the entire team, nikhilnaz signing off from Mumbai.